Welcome to First Contact Stories of the Call Center. I'm your host, Christian Montez, where we dive into the lives that connect us all, one call at a time, revealing the stories behind the leaders' transformative journeys in the contact center world. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to First Contact Stories of the Call Center, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the call center industry to uncover the personal journeys, challenges, and triumphs of its leaders. Now, I'm your host, Christian Montez, and today we're diving into the world of John Coulter, the Vice President of Call Center Outsourcing Services at 5-Star Call Centers. Now, John's story is one of innovation, dedication, and really the relentless pursuit of excellence in customer experience. Over a decade of experience under his belt, John has been at the forefront of transitioning call centers from really just service hubs into key drivers of business growth and customer loyalty. John, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, look, we always start the show with your story, your journey, right? Not everybody wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to work in the call center space when I grow up. Sometimes there is. We have found that story, but generally it's not that case. So kind of walk us through what happened in your early career and what got you into the contact center space and really what keeps you here.
Yeah, I'm from a town in South Dakota, Sioux Falls. So, to me, it's a big city, but to most, it's still smaller, about 300,000 people. After college, I moved back, and Sioux Falls is really a hub of call centers and really credit card divisions. So we had Wells Fargo had their credit card division here, so did Citibank. So everyone just worked in call centers. It was actually just normal. And you can ultimately make it a career at those locations. So started, on the phones like most people in the call center space, did everything from collections to customer service to sales, ultimately managed multiple teams, and then kind of got moved into project management. And through that whole transition, learned a lot, met a lot of great people. And then about 12 years ago, my boss when I was at Wells Fargo, actually moved over to 5-Star Call Centers and then brought me with him. So he's actually been my boss for almost 20 years now. So my transition has been kind of I always call him my fun uncle, who I've gotten to work for now for almost 20 years. So my transition's been, learning a lot, meeting a lot of great people, but ultimately just, every day is a new day, new technology, kind of a new path for any organization that we work with. So it's been a fun transformation over the last 20 years.
What's interesting about that journey is there's a lot of people that have worked in contact centers at some point in their career, right? But they don't stay. And some people say there's not really a career path. And there's others that we've found, obviously through the show and otherwise, that make a career path out of it. It sounds like because who you've worked for so long, there's been some sort of, relationship, both in maybe mentorship, leadership. Can you kind of walk through a little bit of that journey of when you felt this role that may have just not been a career path became a career path for you? And what was it? It's just your own drive? Did you find opportunities? Or was there also that connection of having somebody there like who you've talked about that you've worked with for 20 years that really got you through that?
Yeah, I think the most fun part about, working in a BPO, business process outsourcer, is just all of the differences. All of our clients are different. We're always learning something new about a new industry or a new technology, and the relationships we've made, over the years. I would say my career progression is one thing, but just enjoying what I'm doing ultimately has been the best part, of my career path. Not every day is the same. I get to work with, clients in the retail, the financial services, the healthcare, the product support industries, and ultimately kind of share best practices and use what I've learned, in my retail clients to ultimately help my financial services clients. So I would say, relationships, but ultimately doing something different on a daily basis has been the most fun. But constant education and just learning new things has been a great part of my career and kind of why I enjoy what I do.
Awesome. So there's that piece of, you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, but it's still hard work, right? There's still a lot that you do, and there's a lot of outsourcers out there all over the US, all over in nearshore, offshore. There's so much going on. So talk to me a little bit about what differentiates five-star call centers. I understand that it's really a break from the conventional mold of how you approach things. So what are those distinctive, unique things that Five Star does that really keeps you there and allows you to keep the customers you have?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to remember is you hit it on the head. It's like technology companies, right? There's thousands and thousands of them. Same with outsourced call centers. My biggest thing is I don't really look at them as competitors. More, what can I learn from them? So I actually have a group. We meet once a month, five of us, other BPOs, just to share best practices and kind of do some, learn from one another. So that's one thing I think that kind of differentiates us is if you have two BPOs, it's really not a champion challenger model. Hopefully it's a champion champion model because ultimately that customer is the most important thing at the end of the day. So that's really what we focus on and we strive for here at Five Star. It's not about, it's always about people, right? At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. It's about our agents and it's about the customers. So that's really our biggest focus. Some differentiators we have is, we're not a huge player in the space, right? We've got about 1,000 agents. So everything's customizable. We're easy to work with. If you want to bring in a technology or a tech stack that you want us to use, we can use it. If you want to use our technology, you can use our technology. So we're technology focused. Ultimately, we know, AI is changing the way that we interact with our agents and our customers. And just because of our size, we're able to pivot very quickly. But I would say technology and people ultimately is what really has started to differentiate us, over the last few years.
So let's kind of pivot a little bit because we'll definitely talk about technology and AI in a minute, but around the business model, right? And there's this thing that you emphasize. There's this significance of Midwest based associates in delivering exceptional customer care. How does this regional focus align with that broader strategy of building customer loyalty, brand reputation, and everything that follows with that?
People always talk about Midwest nice, and it's a real thing. I would say the people we hire care. We hire in 30 different states in the US, and that's the number one thing we look for as we hire agents. We want them to be passionate about, who they're interacting with, but ultimately really care about what they do on a daily basis. As we know, customers who feel cared about are more loyal to brands. So that's really, we look for agents who do like to make connections with, calls, emails, chats, however they're interacting with their customers. So Midwest nice. I mean, it's definitely a real thing. So
I can imagine, right, a world in which when we have these conversations, there's going to be that connection that happens every time, right? And there's going to be the times where it's a really poor experience. And so how you hire matters, who you hire matters. And it sounds like you have this framework around that. Is there anything in particular that allows you to differentiate outside of just regionally where someone is from? Is there anything that you could say like, hey, this is something we ask about, test for, or something that allows us when we're interviewing or looking for people to say, yeah, that person is the kind of person that when I get them on the phone or email or chat, they're going to care. They're going to have that empathy or they're going to be compassionate to want to solve a problem for somebody. Anything that you can share around that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things we do. Hiring and recruiting has really evolved, over the years. I would say the number one thing we look for is job history and stability. But ultimately, where have they worked? And when you interact with someone, when our, managers hire for their own team, and just in talking with someone, hey, give us some scenarios of how you helped a customer. How'd you go above and beyond for someone? What's great with the work at home model is almost everyone we hire within the US has had a call center background. And that kind of goes for our nearshore locations as well. Is it's not hard to find talent that is passionate about customers, but is just looking for a change, maybe to a new program, has been with a financial institution, a healthcare facility, a retailer. So we're able to find people that have strong work ethic, good communication skills, have worked in call centers, and ultimately put them with one of our projects that fits their skill set and something they'll be passionate about.
So I know that from our conversation earlier, right, you had this path, right, where you went from being on the phones to where you are today, right? There's this history of wanting more, learning, being in an environment where you're constantly being pushed to learn new things and new industries, new tech. What would you say for somebody who's right now working in a contact center and they want to make it a career path? What could you tell that version of yourself or that person to be able to sit there and say, this is how you could best find a career path versus someone just coming and saying, hey, you're really good on the phone, so I'm going to now start promoting you? Because that obviously does happen. But what could that individual that's hungry for that next step look for?
Yeah, I think that changes for everybody. I think the work at home model has really changed how you promote and engage. If you think about your career and my career, I got promoted through water cooler talks and, being in, conference rooms with people and being able to interact on a daily basis. That model has obviously shifted with the work at home. So it has made identifying talent and building it more challenging. What we've done internally is we use Franklin Covey for our leadership development. So that's kind of the start of the path as we identify just through talking with people who wants the next stage, right? Not everybody wants to progress their career. Some are great on the phones and that's just what they want to do. They like to work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 and check out, and that's great. And then you've got people who do want to be promoted. So our managers have been trained to identify those skill sets, and ultimately we have them start doing knowledge checks, trainings. Maybe they start doing, we do project teams where we'll pull in people from all over the country ultimately and just do hey, here's a scenario for your client, walk through best strategies. How can we implement change? So how the next phase in building leaders has really changed for us over the past, 5 years, I would say significantly.
Yeah, it's really interesting that pivot to the work from home environment, and also when you're able to get talent from all different areas versus just locally those who commute into the brick and mortar, and being able to identify not only those that want more, but sometimes there's that balance between that person who maybe doesn't believe that they could be more and they just need that little push, that little encouragement, that little opportunity to be put in that uncomfortable situation of having to test their abilities. And next you know, they blossom and they become these like rock stars. And doing so in a remote world, it's cool to see that you have an approach to say, how do we do it now? And how do we do it better since we've shifted through the pandemic into what we have now as a hybrid model for a lot of people? Let's kind of shift a little bit on the tech side, but from more of gathering information, even gathering clients. I know recently we were talking about Enterprise Connect, right? It's one of the shows in Florida that both you and I actually just went to. There was a lot of companies there, a lot of people. And so when you went in, what were you looking for? What does a BPO look for when you go to these shows? What do you and your role and your team's individuals that went to the show, what did you go for? And what did you take away from it? What experiences or what outcomes and strategies did five-star call centers and yourself gain from a show like that?
Yeah, I always like to learn, what are the biggest, providers in the world ultimately doing? Because those usually, our client size is usually 6 months to a year behind. So I always like to see the art of the possibility, as I always call it. What's happening in the AI space ultimately, which is the big buzzword right now, on to make an agent's life, our call center agents' job easier. How can things be automated? We look at, we love looking at the startup companies, and then we like to see what your Noble Business and some of those larger tech stacks are doing in the space as well. Just so we can say, hey, we have a need here, or we have a client that may have a strategy or something they can benefit from. So ultimately, we have to just continuously educate ourselves, because that's what our clients look for us for, is helping guide them down the AI path, as we'll call it.
Yeah, I can say that that is a common theme I gathered as well, is that not only was there a ton of the buzzwords around AI and figuring out where you can automate, where you can help the live agent in real time or even post and beforehand to prep them better. but there's also that piece of education of people still are figuring out where to put this stuff, how to best use this stuff. And there's also customers that sit back and go, I want it. And then we have to say, well, what is the it? What is the use case? What are you solving for? What are you trying to achieve? Have you done it before? Or is this the first time, right? And so helping customers understand how to adopt this stuff in the first place is actually been a huge piece of the conversation. And then ultimately seeing if it makes sense, because there's certain places where it's still the shiny object and the ROI isn't there. And there are other places where there is some real benefit that we're seeing. So can you give me some insight of when you approach customers that are just saying, I want the shiny object, but they've never used it before and they want to use your tech stack? Is there something that you go through in the business that allows you to set the stage and proper expectations? Or do you just go, yeah, if that's what you want, no problem. We'll go ahead and do it and hope it works?
Well, I can tell you we've done a lot of things that don't work. We've done some really great things as well, right? Anytime people talks about technology to me, it's don't chase the latest and greatest, right? Be at the best at the technology you use. Know how to use it, know everything it offers before you rip and replace ultimately. So we do a full deep dive of current tech stacks, CRMs, telephony, any AI tools they'll use, any workforce management, hiring, recruiting practices before we even make recommendations to our partners. A lot of times I think people think a software may not do something or they just replacing it's easier. That's not the case, as you know. Get really, really good at what you have is our first recommendation. So we'll do a full, analysis and audit of, this is what you have, this is what you want, and then we'll start making recommendations for there.
Yeah, we're starting to see a lot of automation being brought in and technology in a lot of places. And one of the places is definitely in the hiring and recruiting side, being able to get the right people at the right time. How are you seeing or using or intending to use automation when it comes to the actual hiring and recruiting of people?
Yeah, we touch on hire recruiting a little bit, with all of our partners. Obviously, retention's the biggest piece of our world, but in the hiring and recruiting space, attrition is what it is, and call centers is definitely higher than most industries. This is where I would say we've seen the biggest change and the biggest ROI. We use AI now to post our job positions, so it'll push it out to the most prevalent websites that people are applying on. And they will then scrape those applicants and those resumes as people are coming into us and qualifying or unqualifying people immediately based on, work history, stability, spelling and grammar, how they respond to specific questions. So we use AI significantly in the hiring and recruiting process just for the application piece. First interviews are now done through an avatar. So an agent, after they get through the application stage, if they qualify, they would receive a link to do an interview with an avatar. They can do that, when it's convenient for them versus when I have recruiters on site. So they do that. And then the avatar actually scores them based on, grammar, punctuation, answers to questions. Are their eyes going left and right, up and down? Are they passionate? So it does a really nice job screening those applicants for us. So we've been able to shrink our recruiting time by 50% just automating those two processes. What's great is you'll take 100 applicants down to 20 get the avatar interview, and then it scores them. So managers only have to review the best 5 or 10 that they want to offer to. So significant time and cost savings in the hiring and recruiting process for us.
So talk to me about the output side of that. Have you seen any degradation in the quantity of qualified candidates or candidates that actually once hired perform equally better or worse than what you were doing when you were hiring in the other form with a lot more human touch?
Yeah, significantly better. A few reasons for that. One is if you do hire a candidate and they turn over in 20 days, the AI actually goes back in and says, okay, here were some characteristics on the resume or in their application or things they said. So maybe we need to screen these applicants out. So yes, our AI and our recruiting is always changing and adjusting. So that's been a win. But ultimately, it allows our managers to spend more time with the candidates they're interviewing. When I would say 50% of your interviews, you're not going to hire 5 minutes in. You kind of just start going through the motions and a lot quicker. So now our team spends significantly more time on that final interview before we do offer candidates. So attrition has been significantly better since we've implemented the automation.
And so when we talk about soft skills, right, and things that aren't as easy to see within a resume, how do you adjust, take that into account? Is the AI capable of being able to say, this person's resume says X, but now before they get to that interview with the avatar, how do you know you're not taking out people that could potentially be great from a soft skill perspective, but they may not have the perfect resume for the parameters your AI is looking for?
Yeah, we're always tweaking it and moving it and adjusting it, but that's always at a risk, right? Whether a recruiter does the same thing, I think we got 7,000, resumes or applications last month. So there's no way recruiters can go through all, every single one detailed, call them, give them a phone screen. That's just not time, conducive for them. So we do have to, the automation itself, we've just had to say, hey, here's the best candidates, let's go get them. But we've been able to fill our pipeline and keep it full with the current processes, but we're always tweaking, we're always changing and adjusting to your point. Hopefully if someone's passionate, they call the 800 number on our website, which by the way comes to me, and they can tell me why they want the job. And then if they are good, then I can get them to the recruiting department. So the people who are passionate, have great soft skills, and take the extra effort to call us, get me, and then they go through to our recruiting department.
Got it. So there's still some avenue for human interaction at the early stage of the funnel of getting people in, which is good because
Yep.
there's, tech isn't perfect yet, but the fact that you've been able to find still high quality candidates, it fulfills the quantity of people you need. Turnover is better, right? And they're still performing. That's fantastic to hear. And so has any of that transferred to any of the training and onboarding, or is it still just on the front end when it comes to how you're automating or using technology to, onboard and get the training done?
Yeah, training is obviously, I think all call centers saw huge pivots in their training styles, right? It's not death by PowerPoint anymore. I'm going to steal a line. His name's Brian Clancy, always uses it. It's a guide on the side, is our training model now. So ultimately, we like to do a lot of self-paced learning, some knowledge, classroom training with an instructor. Ultimately, we do like to put all of if there's a team of 6, 8, 12 training into a meeting at once, and then they answer each other's questions, they talk, they interact. We've had to really pivot, the classroom environment to a remote environment. But yes, it's definitely changed significantly with, again, using the learning management systems we have, but self-checks, videos, lots of role-playing, things like that, for sure. We try and do as few PowerPoints now as possible.
Yeah, I think the sooner that you can get them living out what they're going to be doing and engaging in the human interaction, even if it is through the avatar stuff, there is something that allows them to hear and act out loud and do what they're doing versus it just being in their head. And so we've kind of seen what you're doing on the front end. Onboarding is huge, right? And getting them educated. Now let's kind of shift to where automation, AI, or even large language models are being implemented when the agents are now ready to engage, right? They're ready to actually take calls or emails or SMS or whatever their mediums that you're doing for your customer. How is that tech now helping when the agents have been onboarded and they're now really ready doing their everyday job?
Yeah, in just again, because of the size of our clients and the complexity, most of our interactions we take today are either, urgent, complex, or emotional. So a lot of the interactions we change, how we interact with the customer. So I would say most of the tools we use are still behind the scenes for the agent more so than the customer. But what we've done is, we've got knowledge checks, self-helps, agent assist that will pop for the team, chats, emails that'll prompt, here are responses to questions. So we've done a lot just to help guide the agent or help build the confidence of the agent to say, here are some responses we think fit this specific situation. But it's obviously we've got guardrails. Team members are still trained. It's still people business, and we want agents to be confident. I would say AI and LLMs have made incremental improvements in my world. I wouldn't say they've been transformational quite yet, just because again of our client size of being 50 to 100 agents. We're probably 2 to 3 years away before we start to see those huge shifts into the being able to respond to with a LLM responding to customers via the phone and stuff.
This is James. James is a contact center manager with a passion for philosophy and hiking. As a kid, he made a promise to himself that he would always follow his passion. Today, he ponders on the thought that this promise is probably the best decision he ever made. Today, James loves his job just as much as he loves hiking. So much that he sometimes brings the scent of fresh pine and the tranquility of the mountain streams back to the office with him. With Nobel Biz as his company's provider, James found the necessary peace of mind to finally bridge the gap between his passion and his work. By choosing to partner with the promise-keeping voice and software provider of the industry, contact center technical issues, downtime, and poor customer experience are now a thing of the past. In an industry ruled by uncertainty, Nobel Biz combines balanced pricing with the highest quality, topped off with outstanding support. But above all, Nobel Biz delivers peace of mind to contact center managers and owners. And for the first time, James hit that sweet spot of focus and confidence that is allowing him to take his business to new heights of profitability and success. After all, you know what they say, promises are the uniquely human way of ordering the future. Nobel Biz, the promise keepers of the industry.
Yeah, I think we're right on the cusp of companies really testing whether or not there are scenarios in which those virtual voice agents autonomously take those interactions versus a human agent, and when it makes sense for a human agent to take those more complex, more emotional type of engagements. And so we'll continue to see where technology today really does, like you mentioned, help in real time. You have agent assist, guidance, you have automated QA, you have being able to get data, knowledge bases in real time, post-call analytics, all kinds of stuff for recommendations and scoring and so on and so forth. So let's shift a little bit from tech to the fact that when you're in the outsource space, we hear a lot about nearshoring and offshoring. Can you kind of give us some insights on what you're seeing in the trends of those two, and then how these strategies of doing one or the other or both really is going to affect that operational dynamic and even the customer satisfaction?
Yeah, you can even throw tech in there now with, accent neutralization technology that is out there. It's gotten, pretty good. That's for sure. So we do have some of that as well. So I could be a British woman right now if we wanted me to be, and that's how I could sound. The shift hasn't been as great as I thought it would be, to be honest. I thought the year of 2024, the end of 23 and 24 as budgets really came into play for businesses, we'd see a larger shift nearshore and offshore. That actually hasn't been the case that I've seen. I would say a majority of our customers still want US-based agents. The shift we've seen is the off-the-phone functions, your voice, your chats, your social, going nearshore, and maybe some of the simpler tier one type inquiries. But again, most of the calls we take are emotional, complex, or urgent, so they still want that US agent handling those interactions. I think with, as 2024 hits in 25 and automation continues to drive, budgets down, the next phase will be, okay, how can we reduce budgets even more? And then I believe nearshoring and offshoring will come in towards the end of this year into 2025. But again, in the nearshore markets we're in Mexico and Guatemala, it's good cultural alignment with the U.S., good time zones. They've been taking these, working with U.S. companies for 20, 30 years already. So very experienced markets. Quality is great. Team member caliber is great. Education is great. And then ultimately their English is being taught in, elementary schools all the way up now. So proficiency in English is becoming very similar to what you would see within the U.S.
So when it comes to that preference, when we say that there's still people that prefer agents in the U.S., is that still something of language and accent, or is it around the cultural aspect of how you engage? Is there anything that's a driver there that, I get there's tech that can start doing, accent neutralization and so on and so forth, but do you see that being part of a driver of your customer is like dictating that, or is it like feedback they're getting from their end client, the consumer, that's saying that's what I prefer, that's what I want, or is it a combination of both?
I would say it's a combination of both. We support a lot of U.S. brands, right? People want everything handled within the U.S. They prefer not to have anyone with an accent. But again, we got a lot of bilingual folks that in the U.S. or Mexico, you would never know where they're located. Someone in Alabama has a thicker accent than someone in my Guatemala location, right? I would say it's, our companies still want U.S. based. Definitely their customers do have a preference that they speak with someone in the U.S. We do have that offering for nearshore, really from a cost reduction standpoint and kind of the simpler tier one type inquiries. We've seen a lot of success within our nearshore markets.
So do you see today it's a hybrid in the sense of there's a certain portion of agents that are remote and some are still brick and mortar? Are they all remote? And how does that look going into the future? I know a lot of centers are saying, we do both, but you have to earn remote. If you want remote and you're in brick and mortar today, you have to earn it. It's kind of like a nice to get. How does that work today? Is it design hybrid? Do you earn hybrid, or is it full remote? How does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, in the U.S., we go full remote right away. Obviously, it's not new, right? Work from home has been around for 10 years in the U.S., so finding applicants that have worked from home is not very challenging. It takes somebody. It takes a special person, right? Some people love the office. They love the commute. They love the camaraderie, and they have to have that environment. Our agents who work remote, we want to make sure they're not rolling out of bed and walking up to their computer. So we want them to make sure they have, one, a track record of working remotely, but two, we love to hear, walk me through your typical morning. Are you working out? Are you taking your kids to school? What's kind of your routine every morning that you do? So in the U.S., it's that way. In our nearshore markets, you have to earn it to go remote, mainly because it's still relatively new there, right? It's really only been around for 2 to 3 years that's been offered. And we really do it because of the markets we're in. They're large metropolitan, so people have an hour to 2 hour commute to those facilities. So we like to get them on for 30, 60, 90 days. And once we're 100% confident that they can meet their, all their KPIs and metrics, then we do allow them to work remotely.
Awesome. So let's kind of shift a little bit back to what you're seeing in the future when it comes to tech and how that's going to impact the industry. I know we talked a little bit about some of that, but what are you seeing right now that you're saying, look, in 2 to 3 years, whether it's at your contact center or in the industry, what are you seeing coming around the corner that you could say, wow, if done right or implemented properly, that could be a game changer? Is there anything that you're seeing like that, or is it still just a lot of incremental stuff?
A lot of incremental, there is a software out there that does real-time translation voice uh, into like 30 different languages, which we've seen. It's not quite perfect yet. I would say that's probably the biggest transformation I could see in, just voice calls, because now they can go anywhere in the world and in real time transcribing them from English to Spanish and Spanish to English as the agent speaks back. I think that's one of the largest transformational technologies I've seen. The other one is you kind of see the bigger players in the space, your Zooms, your Microsofts, coming out with additional features and functionalities. So it'll be interesting to see what's that look like from a disruptor, right? Microsoft already has, millions of users. What does it look like when they roll out their call center suite, to more agents? Same thing with some of the other telephony platforms who are starting to offer their own analytics packages. So it'll be interesting to see if it's kind of survival of the fittest, where all the big technology providers buy the little ones, or if the little ones ultimately just can't compete. That's kind of what I'm really looking to see what happens over the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I think another big piece to that, right, is the integrity of the data that you have access to, the models of how you feed and train things. And so, from your side of it, let's talk a little bit about like BI tools, right? Intent miners, analytic technology. Uh, what are you guys doing? What are you seeing? Is that the same old, same old? Have you seen improvements? I know when you're working for a bunch of different customers, they all want different information. They want it in different ways. They want to digest it however they want, when they want, and there's different users that need to see that data. How are you managing through that, and where do you see that going?
Yeah, we use two different platforms today for intent mining and for business intelligence tools internally, but then we also have, 20 clients who use their own tools. So that's our biggest challenge. Is it's hard when you see, like you just said, different reporting on a daily basis and different metrics, and people gauge, customer sentiment differently. So for us, streamlining what those reports look like has been probably our biggest struggle over the last few years. But internally, I think it's been they're great tools. You have to know how to use them. Every day we spend time diving into them and analyzing data, and just trying to figure out how can we provide additional value to our customers. But again, I think at this point for us, it's been incremental, but it's on the agent side. I wouldn't say we've transformed someone's business, with the analytics we've been able to gather. I would say the one thing we've been really focused on is one source of truth for our customers. That's been our biggest pain point. Is they might have CRM data that also has a knowledge base that doesn't match their website, that doesn't match the blogs or wherever customers are getting data from. So we've really focused on, okay, how are we responding? Who's responding? How are they responding to customers? To really make sure that the data is accurate before we're starting to make, business decisions.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that single source of truth, right? The customers engage with brands through all different mediums at any different time for different reasons. And to give confusion by missing information, inaccurate information, conflicting information across these mediums is always been a challenge. And especially when a customer wants to reach out and they know that you have a ton of information about them, the feeling like when they engage with a contact center and they know nothing about you, or it feels that way, like they know nothing about you, they have no access to anything. And it's like, you have all this information of me, but I feel like not only am I a nobody, but I have to retell you. And then if you transfer me, I got to know something else. And that whole journey is pretty painful for both us as consumers and obviously the brands and companies we work with. So it's great to see that you get to see a lot of different versions across a lot of different brands that are always asking for the world and how do you deliver it. So having access to good data and knowing that you need to find a single source and work towards that, which I think is the holy grail for a lot of people on data, it's going to be an interesting challenge going in the future. Let's kind of shift to one last piece before we kind of finish off on more of the personal side for you. But how important is culture at the company from a business perspective, from a leadership perspective? And what is unique, different, or what do you just do that others do well that really allows culture to be impactful in the business, or is it really not that impactful?
Well, I've been here for 12 years, so obviously culture does matter. I think, the Gallup survey question, I get to go to work and do what I do best every day. I think that's one of our biggest strengths is even though, our agents are remote in 3 countries, our managers still know people by name. Our ownership team knows everyone down to, our team lead level, and then does skip level interviews with them. Culture is everything, right? You can give people gift cards or, small monetary incentives. That doesn't motivate, that doesn't engage, just getting to know people on a personal level. What makes them tick? Do they want to be promoted? Do they just love what they do? Was very important. And then also asking for their feedback. They're the eyes and the ears for all of our customers. You can have all the AI and BI tools in the world. You could just pick up the phone and call someone and ask them, right? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What can we do to be better today? And I think a lot of businesses have shifted too much to technology and not focused on the people. And that's always going to be our biggest focus is loving our agents, knowing who they are. That's what's made us successful.
Awesome. So let's kind of shift to the life outside the contact center, right? I know that you probably work a lot of hours. You probably are very much immersed into the business, but there has to be some personal passions or hobbies that you do outside of work that you do to give some sort of fulfillment or time for refreshers from work. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, my recharge is, I'm a avid outdoors workout person in gyms. So physical fitness is very important to me. I've done lots of fun races over the years, and then you get, older and your body falls apart on you. So you got to really kind of cut back on the amount of exertion you put on yourself. But that's important to me. And then I've got 3 kids that play travel sports that pretty much own my weekends. So I go to get recharged every weekend when I get to take them to an event or watch them, and then come back Monday ready to rock and roll. So like you said, you put in a lot of hours Monday through Friday just to, get to the weekend to have some fun with my kids and family. So got a great wife. She's super supportive of how much I work during the week. So then the weekends are kind of given to our kids at that point.
That's great. And I know there's always this part of investing into ourselves, not only like what you're talking about, but sometimes it's your own personal education or personal fulfillment for things. And a lot of us do that through books and reading or movies or music. Is there a book or a movie or music that really just influences how you see life, how you engage, how you disconnect, or even just how you grow?
Yeah, I just read one called The Comfort Crisis. It talks about pushing through adversity and the happiness on the other side, right? If you just kind of live a flat life, you're truly not happy, where you got to have some obstacles and challenges to overcome to truly understand joy, is kind of the premise of the book. And it's obvious, it's a lot of outdoorsy stuff as well, but business as well. That's probably one of the best books I've read in a long time. I thought that was really, really well and would recommend that one.
Awesome. And so I know to finish off on the personal side for you, you really had this commitment to the Sioux Empire United Way campaign. And I think it's been for like over 18 years, which is incredible. Can you kind of share about what that experience has been for you? What is it? And, give us some insight to our listeners on what that is and, how do you approach that from your professional and leadership perspective?
Yeah, I was very fortunate at a young age. Was Joel, who's still my boss today, got me put on, pretty much told me I was going to be volunteering for the United Way almost 20 years ago. And I've stuck with it ever since, just to once you get started in the community, it's kind of like a snowball. Once someone knows you do it, then they reach out to you. But the Sioux Empire United Way locally, it's, 90% of what we raise stays local. I personally get to go into schools and see the impact that those donations have. We volunteer at, the banquet, at some elderly shelters here in Sioux Falls, some homeless shelters as well. It's very, you want to live and work in a community you can take pride in. And I'm definitely, I grew up in Sioux Falls. I've seen it change, from 80,000 people to 300. And with those changes, good, bad, and indifferent, right? But I'm super proud to be a part of a company that supports an organization like that. All three owners are on the board or have served on the board for the United Way or other local charities. So they do lead by example, which is a great, just another kind of great reason to work here is that we spend a lot of time in the community helping build it.
That's great. And look, there's going to be a lot of people that are listening and say, I need to get a hold of John. I want to know more about John. I want to follow John, or I want to know more about 5-Star. How can they best do that?
Yeah, feel free to, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, so you can shoot me a message. My big thing is I just love conversations, meeting new people, sharing best practices. So feel free to reach out to me with any topic we've discussed. I don't think there's any really trade secrets out there, right? Happy to share what we're working on. And I just ask whoever I talk with does the same, just helping educate me and keep me up on what's new in the industry as well.
Awesome. So look, that brings us to the end of today's episode. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining and kind of sharing your story, giving us insights of how your in particular BPO sees the world and how you specifically have seen your progression through the journey. And look, for those of you that really enjoyed the episode, want to connect with John, please do so. If you want to look into 5-Star, do so as well. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure to like and follow us. And then if you have any recommendations on who we could have as a great guest, let us know. Otherwise, until next time, we appreciate you as our audience. We'll talk soon.